budget shortfall, what policies will you support to ensure that all children of Minnesota have an equal opportunity to receive a quality education, which is not determined by school size, class size, or where you live?
Well, and let me go back to something that Representative Emmer said, because it does reflect on this. And I'm going to say, Representative Emmer, saying things louder doesn't make them any better, doesn't change the policy. For the last several years, we've had a government that has ignored exactly this kind of issue and has created policies where schools do have to go to 4-day weeks. So we need to do a couple of things. First, we need to invest in early learning. We need to make sure every child enters kindergarten prepared to learn. Secondly, we need to make sure that our schools in small communities around the state have the resources and the policies that allow us to maintain those schools and maintain quality education in those schools. Third, I think we need to look at education as a seamless system from cradle to grave and make sure that people throughout their lives have an opportunity to learn. And lastly, we need to invest as a state in ultra-high-speed broadband access to every corner of the state so that people have access to the world-class education, world-class health care, and world-class economic development opportunities.
Tom Emmer.
You know, politicians, people who have been in the system for a long time like to talk about investment and talk about how we need to put more money here and there. We need to start recognizing that while we have the greatest teachers in the world, our education system is not producing kids that are at the top of the world in terms of the measurements. Folks, we are no longer just competing with Wisconsin, Iowa, North and South Dakota. Yes, our kids scored highest in the country last year on ACTs, but guess what? ACTs have been watered down over the year. The fact is our kids are being produced right in the middle of the pack internationally, and that's where they're competing. It's time to quit talking about business as usual, and I'm sorry if I say it a little louder, I'm very passionate about it, but we got to start talking about a new way that's more about the parents and their child, what's best for the child. Give more choice. Start looking at the model that we've got in place right now. Let's start looking at the next century for education instead of just following through and letting the union control what's happening in the schools.
Let's take a look at what's happened in Minnesota schools over the last 20 years, and to rural schools in particular. I graduated from Worthington Senior High, the family where I lost my dad when I was 15. I got to do activities without paying fees. We had a full range of programs and bands and things like that. And you know what's happened to my home high school? One by one, we've watched those things go away. The same in my wife's high school at Marshall. I was in Grand Meadow a little while ago down by Albert Lee, and you know what was going on down there? They fired their last language teacher because the state wasn't providing resources to help a small rural district, and they couldn't put it on the backs of their farmers. So when those kids want to apply to the U now, they can't get into the U except as remedial students. What are we doing to our state? We used to have a bipartisan belief that education was what brought us forward. And as governor, I'm going to have to make some tough choices. We're going to have to cut some things back. And we are going to have to raise some revenue. But we can't do it on the backs of our future, which is our kids. And on our rural communities, if we expect to move forward, how are we going to move forward when our schools bluntly are being gutted and killed? We can't let that happen. And that's why we need a governor who's going to stand up for our rural schools and our schools across the state.
Rob Hahn.
I want to follow up on a couple things that were said. When it comes to education, particularly K through 12,